Hello everyone, my name is Rudochi Famba and welcome to my YouTube channel where I talk all things project. Super excited to be back again here to discuss yet another topic with you all. Today I decided to chat a little bit about how you go about picking that very first project manager role. This is kind of building up or a good segue from previous videos where you're kind of like figuring out, is project management a good fit for you? And I shared a bit of my journey about how I got into project management, and it's pretty apparent that there are multiple paths that can lead you into a career in project management, whether it be right at the beginning of your career or anywhere in the middle. So this video now assumes that you have taken all of that into consideration, put it into your algorithm, whatever that looks like, and made a decision that you actually want to pursue project management. And I want to do a bit of a disclaimer before I actually dive into the discussion itself, and that's to say this is not job search advice per se in terms of how do you go about looking for a job. That's more for recruiters and job search specialists, and I have absolutely no expertise in that area, so I would definitely direct you to more authoritative sources on that. Like, there are tons of online resources for that. There are people who are really good and skilled at that, so please do reach out to those resources. Where the angle that I'm taking this from is just advising you in terms of what does a good first project management role look like. All right, so we've got that admin and all of those disclaimers out of the way. Now we can dive into the subject matter. So the first thing that I thought would be a good point to start when you're picking your role is pick your industry of interest or your industry of choice. And it could be technology, it could be construction, it could be research, it could be medical. The list is endless. Once you've zeroed in on that industry, then it means that's a whole universe of other options that you take out and you can really focus. And what I would give you in terms of advice around picking an industry is it's a lot easier to pick an industry that you're familiar with. So an industry where you are actually currently working in, ideally, or an industry you've worked in before. The reason why I say that is because it just gives you that much familiarity. I mean, if you are not happy with the industry that you're working in, then that's a totally different consideration to make. But if you're reasonably happy or very happy in that industry, maybe it's a good call to just stay within that industry and look for project management roles within that industry. You want to keep the variables that you can control at their maximum, as in you don't want to be changing your role whilst changing your industry at the same time. So that's one thing. It gives you more confidence because you're not starting from scratch. You've got some context within that industry. You can speak the speak, you can walk the talk, so to speak. Another advantage of staying within an industry that you're familiar with is that the barrier to entry is a lot lower. If people are looking at your resume, you don't want them to be considering the fact that you do not have prior project management experience and you don't have prior industry experience. If you do have prior industry experience, but just all you don't have is prior project management experience, that gives you just that much of an advantage over somebody who doesn't have either. That would be the consideration I would advise you to make in terms of selecting an industry. But having said that, again, always keep at the back of your mind that there are no limitations. Nothing is impossible. If you really feel strongly about venturing into a completely new industry, let that not be a deterrent. Once you've selected your preferred industry, you're on your way there. You've got one big check mark against your checklist. The next thing that you would want to do is to select the company or the set of companies that you would want to work for. And I say set of companies because I feel like you need to have a broadish selection of companies, just so you don't limit your options, because it rarely ever happens that you pick that one company and you go after them and you get the role that you want in there. So keep your options open, have a nice short list. And within that short list, you know, the things that could drive your selection within that short list, they're going to vary from person to person. At the very macro, high level, you're going to be looking at, you know, do their values align with yours? You know, maybe it's important for you that they be very committed to sustainability. Maybe somebody might want to work for a Fortune 500 company. Maybe somebody has got a specific requirement about where the company is geographically located. Maybe there's a city or a state that you are particularly fond of. Maybe there's a particular spot on the globe that you are interested in. So this is going to be different for every different person. And once you have solved for your unique preferences, what I want to now talk about is the specifics around project management. And the most important consideration in selecting the company, in my opinion, is the company's project management competency maturity. So I'm going to slow down a little bit. That's a string of 4 words. What does project management competency maturity mean? That just simply means how mature is that organization at executing projects. The higher the maturity, the better. The lower the maturity, the not so great. My advice to you is shoot for those companies that are at like medium maturity to higher maturity, and try to stay away as much as possible from the organizations that are still at low competency maturity. And the reason why I say that is, you know, regardless of how you're entering the field of project management, you are still new to the field, so to speak, and you're going to be learning. Some might have a really steep learning curve, some might have a flatter learning curve, but the bottom line is you're going to be learning. And you want to learn the right things right out the gate. So companies with a medium to high maturity level are going to be executing best practices. You know, stuff is repeatable, it's documented, it's understood company-wide and that sort of thing. And that's a really, really good environment in which to cut your teeth. On the lower end of the maturity scale, the entropy that you're going to encounter there is just not going to serve you well. The wild, wild west is exactly that. It's wild. You know, you're not going to know what good looks like. You're probably going to get frustrated as well in an environment like that. So my recommendation is definitely go for medium to high maturity organizations. And having said that, is, you know, once you've earned your chops, you are now experienced, can now manage projects in your sleep, you can now venture into those lower maturity organization and actually bring in best practice into those organizations, because you'll be like, I know what good looks like, this is not good, and this is how we fix it. So yeah, project management competence and maturity would be a big one right at the top of the list. Right, so you have selected your medium to high maturity organization. Still on the organization itself, one other attribute which I would recommend you consider is how supportive they are, the support structure that you have. And this goes more, you know, we talked about at the macro level, you would have certain things that you look at in terms of alignment with your values and all of the other good things. Then a level lower would be project management, competency, maturity. And then closer to home, and I mean closer to home in terms of the people that you're going to be working closely with, and primarily your boss, immediate colleagues, that is fellow project managers, fellow program managers, as well as indirect colleagues that you're going to be working with on projects. How supportive those people are of a new entrant in the field is really a game changer. It actually makes a difference whether your entry into the field is a pleasurable one or it's not. And I'll talk a little bit more practically about what support looks like. You want people that know that you are learning, and so they will treat and support you accordingly. They are going to put training wheels on you because they know that you need them. You don't want them to be spoon feeding you because then that doesn't help you either. They're going to have guardrails around you in terms of, let's just keep an eye on this person. Let's give them support in this area. And when this person raises their hand to say, I need help, we're going to rally and go and help them because we should, because we want to get them up to a certain level of capability, So those are things that are really, really important as you're choosing your team. They also need to be patient about getting return on investment on you. So if your boss is expecting that after one project or 1.5 projects, you are going to be, firing on all cylinders and they can throw you onto a mission critical project, then that's probably not a very supportive environment for most people. I mean, there are people who are going to be able to do that, don't get me wrong on that. There are high flyers that are just going to fly like that. But there has to be a certain expectation that you need to ramp up and you need to build your confidence and your abilities over time. So they need to be patient with you, and they need to be able to protect you from the rest of the organization as well. When people come clamoring and wanting you to be moving a lot faster than you are, or they want you to pick up more workload or on other projects, they need to be able to rally in and just protect you and shield you for a reasonable amount of time. Like, you cannot have that kind of protection for forever, but there's a time when that is necessary, and for that period of time that needs to be availed to you. The last consideration you would want to make is around the size and completeness of the first several projects that you're going to work on. And these would be conversations that you're having with your prospective boss during the interview process, and you'll be asking them, like, what sort of projects would you be considering putting me on when I start? Ideally, you want to start with small, complete projects. And why small projects? Small projects will allow you that sandbox environment where you can learn best practices without a lot of pressure. Ideally, you would want those smaller projects to also not be very high visibility within the organization, so you can kind of like be a little bit under the radar, not in a bad way, in a good way. And also that the projects themselves are not super consequential to the organization. So any mistakes that you make in there are also not consequential in themselves. So that's one advantage of going small at the beginning. Another advantage of going small at the beginning is you get quick wins. Let's take, for example, a 3-month project. You take that project from start to finish. It does a lot for your confidence, right? Check mark, I finished that project, it was successful. It also does a lot for the confidence of the people around you. They are more confident in you, like, this person can do it. So that's like a dual advantage of working on smaller projects. It's controlled and it also affords you quick wins. Your next project can then be maybe a 4 to 6 month project. You take that from start to finish, you complete it, and your confidence gets another boost, and the confidence of the ecosystem around you gets another boost. So small is good when you're starting out. Completeness, so the completeness side of things is you want the project, even though it's small, to have all the attributes of a project. You want it to have an initiation phase, a planning phase, executing phase, and a closing phase, all of those being distinct, and you can do monitoring and controlling through the life cycle of that project. And what that helps you with is you will learn what it is like to manage a project end to end, and then you can scale that. Because a small project, a medium project, a large project, they have all of that in common. A less complex project and a very complex project, they have most of those attributes in common. So once you master them in a small project, you can then extrapolate all of those good learnings onto larger and more complex projects. Another advantage of both small and complete projects at the beginning is that it allows you exposure to people within the organization as well as processes and procedures, just on a smaller scale. But you are interacting with people. You know who you need to reach out to for certain things. If it's procurement, you know who you are reaching out to for that. If it is what am I thinking of here? Something logistical, you know who you're reaching out for that. If it's billing, you know how that works within the organization. If it's marketing, you know, you start building those relationships, but again, with a lot less pressure than if it's a huge project. Right. That's what I wanted to share with you today in terms of the criteria or things to consider as you're picking that all-important first project management role. It's ideal to be able to put check marks against each and every one of those attributes, but if it turns out that a role finds itself to you, or you find your way to it and it doesn't necessarily check all of those boxes, you know, be pragmatic. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can make your foray into the field of project management that way, but keep it at the back of your mind that where you don't have those check boxes checked, you probably have to work a little bit harder, or just be aware of some of the constraints or some of the challenges that come with not necessarily having that check box checked. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Hope you found that useful, and as always, if you liked this video, please hit the like button. If you like the content that I share on this channel, please hit the subscribe button. That way you get notified each time I put out a new video. Till next video, you take care. Bye.